Hi everyone, and welcome back to Locked In, the platform where we at Cuboid get to talk about stuff. The purpose of this video series is to explore various topics that will help educate, inform, bring awareness, and hopefully create that light bulb moment for our viewers to consider self-storage as a great investment choice. We're now at the stage in the Locked In series where we've validated why self-storage is a great industry, and now we're starting to move into the what's actually involved topics. As we move forward into this phase of Locked In, we'll start to delve into the specific topics like location analysis, marketing, technology, finance, and many more of the components of a self-storage project that you need to consider. And as a result, hopefully this platform will arm you with the right knowledge, skills, and ecosystem to build, open, and run a successful, future-proof, and profitable facility. In today's episode, I'm joined by Simon Forrester, CEO of the Self Storage Association, and Karen Brennan, CEO of Belfast Self Storage and the You Store It portfolio in Ireland. Welcome, both of you. Thank you so much for coming. Appreciated. Karen has almost 20 years of experience within the self-storage industry, where she's held multiple roles covering sales, marketing, operations, technology, right the way through to her current position as CEO. Coupled with this experience, she's seen the portfolio scale and grow and move from private ownership to being backed by institutional investment from Heitman. Certainly one of the things I know we as Cuboid are very proud of, and of course is a significant milestone for You Store It, was the grand opening last year of the Liffey Valley site, which has the accolade of being the largest purpose-built tech-enabled facility in Europe. These customer spotlight episodes we've integrated into our Locked In series really help and inspire new and existing operators in the market. So Karen, thank you for joining us today. Really appreciate you being here.
You're welcome.
And as I'm no doubt this is going to be a fantastic episode for our viewers. So Karen, let's begin. I know from a sort of an early background, you read sort of education and everything, you're very technically orientated.
Yes.
So how is it that you come to happen to be in self-storage?
Great question. I suppose, yeah, the technical side of it, for me, self-storage was an interesting sector, I would say, fairly robust. And I think built around kind of problem solving. So for me, as a technical kind of focused individual, I would have seen self-storage as a great area to get into for problem solving, because that's, in my mind, that's what self-storage is.
Yeah.
It's, the problems that you're trying to solve are for your customer, for inbound. And also, how do you build awareness? Because that's the single biggest problem. My background would have been procurement, new product introduction, and again, it's about asking the right questions. And I think self-storage lends itself to people who are inquisitive and want to understand the sector from, the whole life cycle, cradle to grave. Again, problem solving. The whole industry is built around what's the problem we're trying to solve, what does the customer want us to solve, and how do we build that awareness piece.
So Karen, before we get into some more specific questions, in the last 20 odd years that you've been in the industry, how have you seen the industry evolve? And perhaps you can give your answer in terms of awareness and customer demand, customer expectations, etc., things like that.
I suppose in general terms, awareness of the sector has increased. There's a lot of online presence by operators. There's a lot of focus on that to be able to get out there, find your customer where they are. Yeah. I do believe there's been a lot of focus by contractors, suppliers, associations in building that awareness piece. I think it has improved. I do believe there's a long way to go. We still get asked those questions. Can I store the furniture? For my house move with you. So there is it's an ongoing kind of issue with awareness. But in terms of the sites, the locations, how operators approach maybe trying to future-proof. So if we want to have a site that is going to be 3rd, 4th gen in 5 years, especially when given your previous investment-sided podcasts.
Yeah.
It's something that we as operators have to look at. In 20 years, I think that awareness piece, also for the operators, not just the customer, is allowing us to make those decisions in terms of, okay, how are we going to fit out this next site?
Yeah.
Do we want to get to 4 or 5, 6 sites? And, what's the best way forward? So I think there's been a lot more collaboration in terms of where do we get our information pieces. Again, I come back to the associations. It's not just because Simon is here, but in terms of the overall awareness of the sector and how individual operators or, medium to large operators look at, okay, 20 years ago, we were still 20 years behind the US in terms of that awareness. The gap has narrowed, I would say, but still, I think the communication and the collaboration has really impacted self-storage sector as a whole in the last maybe 5 to 6 years.
Yeah.
And again, those decisions about prop tech, how do we fit it out? What do we want to see? Based on location, or if it's an older stock site, how do we retrofit? So there's been a lot of change. Whereas beforehand, 20 years ago, we would have been just building units. It's like Field of Dreams. If you build it, they will come.
Yeah.
But there's a little bit more nuance to it, I would say,
Yeah,
and people have to have that strategy starting out. So that's one of the main changes I would see in the sector, especially over 20 years. I don't want to remind myself how long I'm in this, but yeah, it's, again, changes in what's to come and doing your research, moving out, speaking to, other operators, suppliers, contractors, and understanding, the best way forward for your strategy. If you're going to end up at, 5 to 10 sites, what do you want that to look like? What type of customer demographic are you targeting in what areas? So prop tech, awareness and communication, and I think the ability to figure out, okay, where am I going with this? So I think that's been one of the main changes I've seen.
Fantastic, superb.
So you talked about strategy. Of course, the right location's got a huge factor to play here. But could you touch upon how you've helped shape and drive the marketing strategy? I know some people might think you've got a huge marketing engine behind you and a budget to match. What's the reality?
The reality is we don't. I think in terms of how we market, yes, we have a very strong brand presence. I would say U-Store was a first mover, and Belfast Self Storage in Northern Ireland, a first mover in the market. So location does drive demand. So it's all built around the convenience factor. So in terms of our marketing strategy, we have, yes, really high visibility sites, but we tend to use, I would call it more targeted kind of PMAX and TAP awareness campaigns. So again, we come back to that awareness piece. It's so prevalent, but we tie online and offline together. We watch every piece of referral traffic that we get. It's so important. So Google My Business page, again, storage near me is one of the most popular search terms that we have. So you need to build a community nearly around your sites. And I would say that feeds in directly into what I would call the free advertising. Google My Business, publish posts, using feedback. We use Trustpilot quite a lot. Trustpilot has amazing referral traffic. You can link that in. Obviously, there are those costs associated, but as an overall, in terms of our marketing strategy, there was one piece. I'm a big fan of A/B testing. So if we have, for example, we've 2 sites very, very close together. And I tend to use those 2 sites to A/B test marketing. And I get results really, really quickly. We've a good DM team behind us, but we don't have an internal marketing team. We basically look at our search volumes. We tie all of the pieces of kit together, if you like. So that customer feedback piece, which is massive. If, you know, I haven't heard it being discussed so much in terms of, you know, operators when we chat about things. Maybe I'm giving away, you know, trade secrets here, but that's what this podcast is about. But in terms of tying the customer feedback piece into your website, what reviews are people looking at? They always look at the negative reviews. So your response to negative reviews is so essential. You just can't underestimate the impact. So it's the nature of the beast. You can't please all of the people all of the time. So in terms of marketing, that is a strategy that we look at. We watch that and monitor it really closely. So big budget, no. Effective, yes.
Yeah.
So it's just about looking at it as an overall and listening to all the opinions. So not just, you know, the senior management team or the marketing team. We do consistent surveys as well. So we've got marketing surveys inbound and outbound for every customer. So we learn all the time, which is every day is a school day.
That's the only way you're going to get better.
Exactly.
So just picking up on, you talk about SEO there. Have you adapted your line of thinking around AI and the AI search? Have you adjusted to that?
We have. We're not putting massive focus on it at the minute. We do use AI within the business in terms of how we answer questions and to roll out this access 24/7. I mean, that's one of our USPs, that, you know, our customers can get access 24/7, but we've never had an opportunity to be available to them 24/7, and AI gives you that. So in terms of Google search, it's quite, I would say it's in its infancy in, you know, the AI searches, because it doesn't really drill down. It gives you a broad overview of self-storage. Again, Google will try and feed you to that Google Maps listing, Google My Business, and again, the feedback piece. So the reviews are front and center. But AI is going to become more of a focus as it gets more specific. I mean, AI at the minute, in terms of, you know, from an operator, if you have an AI agent, not live, like as in not directly connected to the internet, but, you know, you need to feed that information in. And what we do is we feed transcripts of existing calls to teach. And we found, and again, I've A/B tested that, but that's just the geek in me. But I think the A/B testing, when you change, and I would say that for any new entrants, I would say change one thing at a time and measure. I see this, you know, we're like, you know, kids in a schoolyard, you know, oh, this looks great, let me use this, let me use that. And people try to do all things at the same time, and we all know jack of all trades, master of none. So I would say, if you have the opportunity to do it, A/B test, get your ROI and understand next steps. So that's worked for us.
Great, thank you. So as a CEO for a complex organisation that's spread geographically all around the island of Ireland, you've got a strategy. How do you translate that into language that every part of the organisation understands and takes on board?
I suppose, how it works for UStore, again, you're right, we are spread geographically. We come up with our strategy, we have it, you know, our forecasts and how we're going to achieve that for the next year. We sit down as a senior management team and discuss the best way to communicate and collaborate with teams on the ground. We're quite a lean team in terms of head office and the branch management teams as well. So we have weekly kind of brainstorm exercises. So we have a senior management team meeting every single week. Once a month, we have all of our branch managers come to a central location. Either it's in head office or we go to one of the branches and have everyone travel. Because I genuinely think that we need to have people in a room together, because it is a people-facing sector, and everybody needs to be involved. So there's lots of opinions that can be very valid. It doesn't mean to say one is good, bad, or indifferent, but you need to hear it. And I think the best way to do that is to bring and engage at a branch level, so that we know that's, again, being almost remote, it's so helpful to have the people that are actually managing these business on a day-to-day level, understanding where we're going to, how we're going to achieve that, and what good looks like. I mean, it's so important for your branch teams to have a seat at the table. In terms of measurement, we have each of our branch managers present their own numbers. So it leads into that kind of racy and the accountability piece. Yeah. And people need to have autonomy. It is guided, but we need to have that autonomy piece out there, and people need to be empowered and engaged. And, a lot of our branch managers, there's, a couple of branches, remote branches, that will go and get themselves off to the Chambers of Commerce. Will go in the evening. So these are branch managers that are really taking ownership of a location, and you need that. That's, I think in terms of a business, that's priceless to have people engaged at that level, interested, and coming up with these ideas. And then they come to a branch managers meeting and they share the results of this. We've got 20 new contacts. We've got new business. We can quantify it in square foot. So it's so important to have that engagement piece and face-to-face time.
So if I'm correct, Karen, 2022, Heitman fully acquired U-Store It. Maybe you could talk to us about what that means from a growth trajectory, and maybe how the business dynamics have changed since that acquisition.
Yes, it's been a whirlwind, I would say. Heitman bring a lot to the table. They have a huge wealth of experience and depth of knowledge in self-storage, particularly from the US. So that gives you kind of large-scale, investor-led data analytics.
Brilliant.
Right. Data, I love the numbers, and I love looking at the data, but they look at it in a very specific way. And, our in-house reporting was actually quite robust, but this is next level.
Okay.
And I suppose the knowledge that brings and how these numbers actually impact your day-to-day is something that, an operator that's in the midst of maybe an acquisition or in exclusivity right now is probably thinking, how's this going to work? Yeah. If, the progression piece, a bit like myself, with so many of the roles, it was just natural for me to move into that position. But I would say the one thing that I really liked about the acquisition and post-acquisition was this, I suppose, willingness to have I've travelled to Chicago. I've spoken at investor panels. I've been immersed in, Heitman's self storage world. I don't really need to know about all of the apartments and the student living and PBSA, but that that awareness piece and that exposure to massive businesses in the US and some of the other acquisitions has been hugely helpful. In terms of board meetings, that's a sea change, and any operator going through an acquisition will maybe have to get used to that depending on their existing setup. But I just find that, again, I would say every day is a learning day, and I love that. I love that aspect of it, especially, I can bring something new to the table that maybe Heitman weren't expecting.
Okay.
In terms of the strategy, it's very specific. So we know where we want to get to, and we're well underway, and we're consistently looking at pipeline and how we're going to get there. And also in terms of, what partners you have along the way. How are we going to engage PropTech? What's the return on the investment? And also, the wonderful world of capital allowances and how that works is all fed in. And I find that hugely interesting, I have to say. But we've done remarkably well in a short space of time. And I do have to give credit to Heitman in terms of how they've done it. They really do engage and empower, and it's almost like I'm the branch manager for the business.
Yeah,
and you have to bear in mind that we operate across, we're cross border, so we have 2 sites that operate in Northern Ireland, and the other 7 that operate in Republic of Ireland. So we have some complication in terms of reporting, but we have managed to get up to speed really, really quickly in terms of fund level reporting, and basically to be able to keep quite a narrow, lean team, but with Heitman's help and some of the asset managers that have helped along the way within Heitman have been fantastic.
Yeah, superb.
Yeah.
Excellent. Yeah, it's really good.
So you're talking about sort of that rapid change. I've got to talk about the Liffey Valley store. One of my introductions to the industry was going to Fidessa, and hearing people come back from that site visit, absolutely, it blew a lot of people's minds, that because they I think their expectations were there, and everything was surpassed in terms of what they saw, the scale of it, the complexity. I mean, to get that project from literally ground zero to, cutting the ribbon, what were the highs and lows along the way? Because there must have been so many challenges to get over, along with some real high points for you, because you've developed the biggest site in Europe. It's incredible.
Thank you very much. It's it's the highs and lows. One of the highs is the height of it. We actually increased it. Went back into planning and increased the height of the building. So it's just under 20 metres tall. 19.9 is regulation. So
well done.
I mean, it was quite a tricky site. We have got images around the building just showing the progression of the build, but it was quite a tricky site in terms of it's high, but it's quite narrow, and we had some difficulties initially with construction and cranes, and we had one of the challenges was there was a creche, so a children's creche, just nestled in the corner, and we had to build around that. But we had a fantastic relationship with them. They were so good, and we had the children there for the topping out ceremony. So I think this is a Swedish tradition, that when you get to the top level of your build, you have this topping out ceremony. So we got bonsai trees, and we had the children in from the crash, and we did a whole awareness piece on it. But they were fantastic. They were really good about it, and I have to say our contractor looked after them really well, constantly in communication, which was super, because these are your neighbours. You need to look after that. I think the lows were, you know, the delays, I would say, with planning. It was quite difficult. And the highs were, yes, when we got to the topping out. I would say, you know, it's an unabashed plug, I would say, for Cuboid in terms of getting the materials to site and planning that program to have this, you know, the storage units fit out, and the discussion about how awkward it was going to be, because we had to leave the building open to get the materials in. I'd say Cuboid they managed it really well. It's that relationship with the contractor can get, you know, by the time the fit out happens, you're quite the way through the project, and relations can get tricky. And I would say the guys dealt with it really well. Went to program on time, on budget, thankfully, and the yield was good. So I would say that was a high, because you can kind of drop your shoulders a bit. Okay, there's units going in. It looks like a self-storage facility. But it was a phenomenal build in terms of, you know, the location of it, and the queries about what are they building? What is this thing? You know, it was absolutely fantastic. And as soon as we clad it, I think that was a big highlight for me, because I tell you, there was a speed camera across the way from where we've built. So it was a massive M4. It's like Maria, my head of operations, should be able to give the exact numbers, but I think it's like 250,000 cars a week pass Liffey Valley. So it's an absolute killer site. But there was a speed camera opposite, and I was consumed with getting the signage on before it moved on.
Yeah.
Because people started to talk about it. You know, they were posting on socials and saying, "Oh, guys, there's a speed camera here," or whatever it happens to be. But we got the sign up eventually, and it was great. And also, I would say, just from a marketing perspective, we had a similar kind of issue where people were, "Oh, this building doesn't fit, and it's not in keeping with the offices." But we had architectural teams in, design teams in, to make sure that we were absolutely on point for the other buildings that were there. But again, that leans into, I call, the negative side of marketing. At least we're engaging. You know, we're engaging with people, and you know, we invited them up for Fidessa in Dublin, which was, so it was super. Most people would say, "I've never seen a storage facility like it. It doesn't look like a storage facility."
I think that was definitely one of the conversations, because it's not your standard big box. And I know that as part of the podcast, you've got a link through to look at the imagery, but it's an amazing building. And I think, you know, looking at the direction of travel for self-storage for the buildings, they've got to be more in keeping. They've got to be blending into the environment. You can't just stick a big tin box at the side of the road branded in your colours, because as we've seen recently, BBC News talking about some sites that have got local residents up in arms who are saying, "I can't stand that strong colour in the skyline." You know, there's a reason why companies like Amazon grade their buildings so they merge into the skyline. You know, so I think we as an industry have got to be much more aware of that. And if people are looking to change and expand their site, they've got to bear in mind how they can minimise that pushback from the local community. again, you've got fantastic awareness raising there and brand recognition as well, because if people didn't know about self-storage, now they know about it with your name rather than somebody else's name. So kudos to you for getting that sign up there. But there's the negative brand recognition we've got to minimise as a sector, and that is part of it is that community engagement and making sure that we are not an enemy to a community, we're a friend. We're offering a service to them and something positive. The Liffey Valley site, it's fully prop tech. It's technology from A to Z. That's quite different from the rest of your portfolio. What was the thinking behind that change, and how has that been realised?
The thinking behind it was we needed to be able to be more convenient to our customer base, especially in that location. Strategically, it's in the middle of massive commercial retail park, and also a huge volume of residential with more coming. So we looked ahead at all of the planning for residential developments. So it was really important that we were accessible 24 hours a day. So the prop tech has given us the ability to allow a customer move in completely autonomously via smart lock, to be able to access their unit whenever they want. But the main piece and the strategy was to have Liffey Valley as a site, almost a test case, to see is there this appetite, because there's been a lot of movement in prop tech in terms of we can talk about unmanned, but simply a site the size of Liffey Valley wouldn't support being unmanned, especially in lease up. But it was a test site essentially to see, okay, is this something that we should introduce across the portfolio? And again, it's with the Ballymount facility. So Ballymount facility is quite close. It's 160,000 square feet. So it's technically larger than Liffey Valley, but it's a manual system. Yeah. So when we look at the A/B test and we look at the lease up rates that are happening outside of our normal business hours, it's a no-brainer. So that strategy to look ahead at future acquisitions or developments informs you really, really well. You can make these decisions. You do have to have that search volume. You do have to have those demand drivers wherever you're going to move into. But the prop tech has allowed us to let our customers, new customers and existing, I should emphasise that actually, existing customers can upgrade or downsize 24 hours a day, which is phenomenal. So in terms of an A/B test, it's worked, and it is, I would say, it is informing our strategy for the future.
And I guess if you're not a used to, if you're not a multi-site operation, you can A/B test within your building just by maybe doing a floor of tech and embedding that and just seeing how that goes with customers and encouraging them to try it, and then obviously then it scale up if that's appropriate.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's a really good point, and something that I think will become part of the strategy for the future, in terms of do we move more commercial or residential when we look to do those type of retrofit things. So when we look at demand, we can see maybe a slight softening on commercial. I'm not sure if that's similar in the UK market, but there's a slight softening on commercial, which means, okay, do we then, typically anyone who would have done the ground floor in smart lock and the upper floor is traditional wired, that we may be bucking the trend a little bit on that, because the commercial opportunity, and when commercials tend to access, it's during business hours. Why do they need a smart lock? They're typically making their decisions ahead of time. Why would you have a smart lock on all of your commercials when that's not an obstacle to a close. The obstacle to a close for residential is most people are, the people who have disposable income, they're working. They want to do it at the weekend. They want to do things when it suits them. So it's a convenience piece. So that's something that I'm in the middle of an A/B test on as well.
And I think just on the smaller piece as well, people having it on their phone, they can see if anyone's accessing their unit. They've got that immediate visibility. A key that's in their house could go missing. With that, they can see instantly and get an alert if the door opens. So there's that extra piece of trust and security around that. So that's important too. It's interesting the whole piece about the A/B testing, which has been a theme of the conversation.
I know. I'm constantly promoting that, but it's just so useful and so important.
Yeah, just keep trying those bits, something a little bit different, one at a time, as you said. Don't do 10, and then just go, okay, that's better than that. We'll do more of that, and then try it again. Okay, that's better, and just it's that continual improvement cycle, which is really, really, really important. The good thing about self-storage is you've got a constant churn of customers, so you've always got new markets to focus on. And just picking up on the point about site locations and marketing, we're picking up on those in some of the future episodes of the podcast. See, as co-host, I'm allowed to do this. It's great.
It's like you've read the programme, Simon.
Yeah.
Like you know what's going on.
It's so good to see this promotion is paying off.
I'm very proud. I'm very proud Cuboid have invested in me in that
Brilliant.
way.
I've got a point regarding, obviously, Liffey Valley is a huge site. So the decision to go very heavy on the tech, obviously that comes at a cost, because tech-enabled facilities are more expensive to set up than a manual padlock facility. So what were the drivers to say, yes, we want to invest in the tech-heavy side, even though it's going to cost a lot more of that initial investment to get it up and running?
Yeah, I mean, again, it's a good question. It's a really good question when you're backed by institutional investors. It's pure and simple. It's future proofing.
Right.
You need to have the ability to allow your customers in whenever they need to get in. The other piece to it as well is in terms of everyone, I mean, any business is going to be looking towards exit, and this is a fourth gen facility, which you need to have, let's call it a jewel in the crown. It's an ideal strategy to have moving forward. If you do a mix within the location, so wired and partially smart lock, that's great. But a site that can pretty much do its job and convert and lease up at phenomenal rates without the need for interaction, that's a win-win.
Yeah.
So in terms of a longer term strategy, it makes sense all day long to do it. And the kiosk, I think, helps in terms of, we've so much visibility. As I said, the Liffey Valley site is based in a massive retail and a retail mall and a shopping centre, so we can drive traffic. One of the highlights, to go back on Simon's question earlier, is when, during summer high season, our signage has been placed so that when you walk across to the shopping centre, which is all glass, our signage is looking at you.
Brilliant.
So it's reflected in the building. And, the marketing piece for us is to let people know that, yes, if you wander across and have a look, and, we've had open days for that, wander across, you can use the kiosk. Our kiosk is motion activated.
Okay.
So we get quite a lot of footfall. As soon as, I'm sure it's, it can frighten the living daylights out of you, but it's motion activated and it just gives you the welcome.
Yeah.
Come on in.
So for the sake of our viewers, the kiosk is like the kiosk you get in McDonald's where you order your food. You can manually.
It's
you can.
so much.
It's so much more.
Yeah.
It's so much more. But
And you
essentially
can't order fries through it.
No.
But essentially, you can book your room,
Yeah.
you sign your contract, you pay your first month, etc., etc. It's all done on a screen.
Yeah.
And it's future ready. Yeah, perfect.
And I would say, from our accounts perspective, when we look at all of the KPIs that we have, the only pitfall is we don't sell padlocks.
No, right, okay.
So, but yeah, it makes sense moving forward. And I would say to anyone coming into the sector now is to maybe have a look at, the locations. Some people are just trying to sweat assets that they currently have and look at that location, make sure that it will support that, but I would say future-proof it. I don't know if this has come up on any of the podcasts, but recruitment has been a challenge in the past number of years, and I don't see that for an on-site job. It's not, there's not a massive amount of opportunity for hybrid, which is, we've seen that, just absolutely amplify since COVID. But that kind of resourcing piece is also a factor, I would say.
Cool. Well, this might not be a question that makes the podcast, but it's more for my own benefit.
Yeah.
Do you, when it comes to the price you put out in the market, do you charge a premium by having the smart access, or do you still have to be competitive against the people out there that haven't got smart locks?
You still have to be competitive. I mean, ultimately, you are solving a problem. You're in lease up, right? So there's, technically, you're going to run at lease up rates, which are discounted from your standard street rates, for a period of 12 to 18 months. Typically, that's what we would do. At the moment, I would say Liffey Valley kind of books that trend, so thankfully, but it's something to bear in mind. If you're opposite a traditional store and location is not a factor that's going to influence a customer or lead's decision, then you can't simply tack on a 10 to 15% premium,
right,
because they can get in whenever they want. I mean, typically, customers would look for and feel that they need 24-hour access. But is that actually the case when we look at the numbers? Possibly not.
That's where your data comes in.
Exactly.
I guess.
Yeah. And again, actually, it's a great point for new entrants as well in terms of planning. There's always that traffic management piece. And the beauty about self-storage is you typically, like even in a massive site like Ballymount, you typically have no more than 15 vehicles on site at any one time.
Yeah.
So in terms of ease with planning applications, that should be something that new entrants look at and focus on, because it's always a concern to the planners in different councils.
Right, I'll just do my quick pitch here that SSA has a traffic survey. So if you're a member of ours, you get access to a survey which you can lift and give to the planners to say, here's an actual survey of the number of vehicles on site. Because for a lot of planners, they see that big box as being, okay, so there's potentially 10,000 customers, so we need space for 5,000 vehicles, and again, I keep coming back to this one, but the old we need more bike racks. Not many people turn up to self-storage on a bike. Some do.
Unless they're storing the bike.
Unless they're storing yeah. But then they don't need a bike rack because they're putting it away.
In the bike rack with Liffey Valley, we had to put it in. It was a requirement, and in terms of location of it. The architect was, has to go here. We had a bike rack which was covered under a canopy. So it was, it's just, you have to appease, planning. But yeah, I agree. I don't see
With
many
your site,
bicycles coming.
with your site being regarded as retail as well, did you have any issues with fire regs and things like that in terms of foot traffic and travel distances and things like that?
No, it's again the width of the site lent itself really well to that. I think planning regs with fire has come under the spotlight recently. Again, I do believe it's related to a lot of the new entrants coming into the market that maybe don't have a fire consultant or an architect that has self-storage in their mind.
Yeah.
Just as Simon said, the parking element, that's massive. But somebody coming into it, fresh, doesn't understand that piece. So I recently spoke to an operator that's trying to set up, and he'd asked me, where do you put your sprinklers? I was like, sprinklers? What's gonna?
Whoa, hang on a minute.
Back up to the truck, yeah. So, sprinklers, it's that the fire consultant that you use. So having a central kind of repository of information for new entrants where there's not this, I suppose, opportunity for fire regs to take over your life for new developments. It's a very important learning piece, I would say, for new entrants, because this is not the wrong architect, but an architect that's used to building hotels.
Yeah.
He's going to look for massive increases, obviously at a cost element, but also just usability. The disability access piece as well with B-car, turning circles. It's about educating a fire consultant to this is how it's done. So I would always suggest reach out to your association or reach out to other operators to see best practice. And then we all won't have a problem, because I think it's just an understanding of what self-storage is. Explaining to an architect that it's not, these are not lived in. It's not a hotel. You don't need to, to adhere to those stringent regulations. Yeah. Good question, though. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think just on that point, I'm from a trade association background, worked in a lot of sectors. I always think awards are a fantastic opportunity to see what's good out there. So go through the UK Association, the Fidessa website, look at who's won awards, and go and see them. Phone up, say, can I come and have a look round? See who they've used. Have they worked with Cuboid? Who's their architect? Who actually built this or has extended it for you? So have those conversations with the industry and learn from what the best looks like, rather than just going, well, I'll put in another box like that one down the road, because at some point that will not be allowed. Planners are getting much more savvy now to what the local economy will stand, and we have to represent in the right way. That's really, really important to have people on your side who really understand self-storage to get over those planning hurdles. So, Karen, looking at on the tech side, I want to focus on the specifically around data. What advice and guidance have you got for people in terms of integration of data? So building that tech stack, particularly in relation to growing a portfolio of sites.
Right. Yeah, it's probably one of the most important pieces in terms of going from you store it originally, just a couple of sites, moving right the way through. The most important piece was to have the system set that you can bolt on. We had acquisitions. So the system set in terms of What PMS do you use? Does it integrate with a CRM system? Do you have the ability to link sites? Years ago, it would have been our strategy would have been using, remote services and VPNs, and all of that has completely changed because we're all gone browser based. But the data that we pull from the interface between our website, our PMS, the booking engine, all of these pieces driving data centrally so that we can make decisions and bolt on new acquisitions or develop a new site and immediately just bring them in. So there's not this, really all you need to have is the internet connectivity. But the data that's driven from there and the KPIs in terms of conversions, where are we converting, how, what's our life cycle on a particular demographic, postcode statistics. The CRM system is key to that. There's a lot of improvements in the last, I would say, even 5 to 6 years. HubSpot has come on huge in leaps and bounds, and I think they've so many modules. It's no pun intended, but this hub and spoke model where they've got this central key piece, which is the CRM, and then they've got service and operations and marketing. I think there's so much in terms of data available to operators right now that if they're looking to move from 1 or 2 sites to 5 or to 10, they need to have that key information data piece set and ready to roll out so that everything else can link in. So the prop tech, the mechanical prop tech can link, and that can also drive information. So that data comes in and you as an operator can say, okay, this is working. But I think it's hugely important for people to discuss, like operators to discuss, this is working for me. There's been lots of improvements. There's different businesses coming out that have come on in absolute strides in the last couple of years in terms of the PMS. There's so many, but I think it was such a closed sector before. Now a lot of the contractors in terms of the IT and the digital stack that we need to have, they're much more open. We can talk about open APIs all day, but they're much more open and willing to link with other pieces of kit. And all we're trying to do is make it easier for an operator to pick a system, run with it, get the right data from it, which is also useful when we talk about exit. You have it in such a way that it links with your accounting, it links with your maybe your HR system, your payroll system, in terms of security. They're just so integrated now, and they need to be. And if you had an investment or a REIT come in and look at your business for exit, having that tech stack in place is essential.
Yeah, you're going to get the best value for money.
Yeah.
Out of your investment, and also it's going to make it a lot easier for them to make that decision because it's already all there for them.
Again, I would say the self-storage sector, we're problem solvers. So solve it for the investors before they come looking.
Absolutely.
So one final one from me, Karen, a little bit off piste. We all know that the industry historically has always been very male dominated, but you buck the trend there. Your senior management team is predominantly women, which is fantastic. Was that a deliberate move, or was that more sort of an unconscious thing, or how did that come around?
I would say in terms of filling, my brief was to fill out a head office team. A team that could progress the portfolio. From my perspective, yes, it was a deliberate move. I find that women in terms of general efficacy, they're more collaborative.
Yeah.
You know, much better communication skills, have empathy, and we wanted to change the culture. So you're right in terms of historically what's been the case in self-storage, but I think that's true of a lot of different sectors.
Yeah, you're right.
I see so many more women in self-storage than I did like 10 years ago.
Yeah.
It was just unheard of. We have a strong team, a really experienced team that works so well together that it's just, you know, we've taken off. And you have to remember the senior management team in U-Store and Belfast Self Storage right now is still very young in terms of moving into leadership roles. And I find that the more we see of this across the sector, you know, people do what they see. We need more role models at leadership positions. There was a book or an article I read, Steele, I think was his name. And it was basically that women deal with stereotype threat, right? So in terms of women emotional, right, on one side, you know, softer, that's a good woman. That same woman in a leadership role is seen as maybe slightly aggressive, has to be in a leadership role. Yeah. So that efficacy piece, it moves from, you know, if I'm a good woman, I'm a bad leader. So that seems to be the seesaw. And that's the stereotype threat is when that stereotype is brought up in, for example, in a board meeting, again, that kind of brain kicks in to be either, if the stereotype is put front and center, so there's a couple of different options, you know, fight or flight.
Yeah.
But it's something that we have to work on as an industry because communication, collaboration, and empathy are so essential in building the right culture. And again, if we don't have a situation where people can, women in particular, but men as well, that you can see a leadership role doesn't mean, you know, you have to be seen as either or. You know, there's a huge piece of work gone in the last, I would say, 5-6 years in terms of, you know, that work-life balance. COVID has given us a good focus on that as well. But from my team, we are so effective at communicating with all of our branches, with all of our contractors, suppliers, with each other, with Heitman at board level, that it just works.
Yeah.
So for me, as a strategy moving forward, it doesn't mean that any additional resources within U-Storage or Belfast Self Storage are female only, but I think it is important for us to be visible as a majority women-led team, but also for us to be good at what we do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's about getting the right people in the right roles, isn't it?
Obviously,
at the end of the day.
but what I should say is they're
good at what
I
they do.
need to make sure because this podcast is going out live. The team that I have are hugely experienced, each in their own fields. A combined experience of like 70 years in the business. So not to be slighted, you know, that this has been a strategy. The right people in the right positions and able to work well together and promote that engagement and empowerment within both men and women in the wider kind of, you know, company.
I think as an industry, the age of the industry now is there's now a tranche of people who were those early adopters that are now stepping back from the businesses and retiring. So there's a sort of vacuum at the top, and we've got to bring people through. So in the UK, we've got the Young Storer Network, which is great at bringing people together. And you attend those events, and the gender balance is much more even. And it's a much more diverse environment that then encourages people to lift each other up. They're growing that network nationally or indeed Europe-wide, and getting to know people in other businesses that they can pick the phone up to and say, I've got an issue with this, or I'm about to take a seat on the board. What can you do to support me? So, that's really, really important to grow that network. So I'd say, plug again, go through your associations, talk to people, whether it's the Irish Association or SSA UK, find those networks and talk to people and support each other, lift each other up.
Yeah, agreed. Great point. Yeah.
So right then, fantastic conversation today, Karen. Thank you so much for coming in. Really appreciate you coming over, and hopefully, that's given some people some great insights, and your expertise and your knowledge is very much appreciated. So thank you very much for coming.
You're very welcome.
Did you want to say anything, Simon?
We covered such a range of grounds today. I mean, it's been fascinating. After seeing the reaction of people coming out of your Liffey Valley store back in September, to really get to understand a bit more about how that came about and what you've done to achieve and grow from there. It's really inspirational, and I hope that the people watching this can take some key things away, if only A/B testing. But there's a lot more beside that to then help to grow their business in the future. Thank you.
So thanks for tuning in. Join us next time, where we'll be joined by industry experts from Storage Partners, where we'll be exploring one of the most important subjects, all things location, location, location. That's all for now, folks. So let's sign off, and we'll catch you next time on Locked In.